If you want to build your business very well, have these conversations.
So the big question is, what are the top agents doing to absolutely crush it in real estate, grow their teams, and add more transactions year over year while so many struggle? If you ever thought about this, you're not alone. No one has been able to get the answers until now.
We spent the last few years helping agents sell billions in real estate, rubbing shoulders with top producers, which got us thinking, how can we expose more people to these insights to help raise the standard in the whole real estate industry? We then realized that we could help bridge the gap by getting the secrets from the best of the best so that you can succeed. My name is Andrew Dunn.
And my name is Peter Michael. Welcome to Elite Agent Secrets.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Elite Agent Secrets podcast. Today we've got Walter Key with us. He is a vet of 21 years in the Navy, former marathon runner, a top producing agent. He was actually the top 3% in the entire MLS region of Central Virginia, the number one in his office, the top producer. Obviously, he's now a real estate coach and mentor. And if you are watching on YouTube, he loves Hawaiian shirts, as we can see, because he's rocking one with us today. Today, we're going to be talking about having quality conversations, FSBOs, landlords, and prospecting with Facebook groups. We've spoken about this before. We love this topic. Loads of people love this topic. We might know where you got this from. So we're going to be diving in to everything today. So thanks for jumping on with the show with us today. Well, we've heard a lot about you. A lot of people obviously won't know you, but in our circles, and this is the first time for everyone, this is the first time we've actually met, but we keep hearing along the grapevine, this guy's the king of cold calling. This is all we've fucking heard for months. It's like, you need to speak to Walter. He's the king of cold calling. And just off air, he was like, dude, I've never cold called anyone in my life. So there is going to be there is going to see some truth and some value.
What the fuck does that even mean? I've never cold called, but you're the king of cold calling.
Yeah, well, we're about to unpack it because off air, he was like, dude, I've never cold called anybody in my life. And I'm like, Peter's going to love this.
Yeah.
So for anybody listening, I heard this, I said this multiple times. There's two fears in my life that I've always had. One of them was having kids, which I kind of got over because I have another one on the way. But the second was cold calling. I would much rather probably stand up naked in front of 15,000 people on a stage than do cold calling. So yes, this is going to be one hell of a ride. And first of all, Andrew, it's not a Hawaiian shirt. These are the tropical Florida vibes now, since we're blessed with Walt's presence down here.
That's funny. So this particular shirt that I'm wearing right now is actually made in Hawaii. Like, no joke, it's a true Hawaiian shirt. And I actually bought it in Hawaii. And believe this or not, this shirt and the exact same matching pattern, I bought my wife the dress, my daughter the smaller dress, and my two sons a matching shirt. Our whole family has this exact pattern. Now I'm the only one that wears them anymore, right? We wore them once, and everyone was like, "Yeah, it's cool. Thanks for this, Dad. Should have brought us some macadamia nuts or something."
You should do some amazing Christmas pictures on the beach in the outfits.
Yeah,
all matching.
Yeah,
get rocking and rolling. So
that would be pretty awesome.
Obviously, what we like to do with the start of every show is to kind of give people context around you. Take us back to pre-real estate. So what you were doing before, I'm guessing, was the Navy, but let's get clarity around what you were doing before and what forced you into real estate. And I'd love for you go through like the years in real estate, how long you've been doing it, and what each year looked like, because we see such a big range of success. Some people like flop the first year, some people have wild success. So I'd love to give the listeners context to your journey.
So let's briefly go back to 2001. Young kid in the Navy. I joined the Navy December of 99, so I've only been in the Navy a little bit. And I bought my first house. Young guy, didn't have a lot of money, but didn't want to be in this crappy apartment. And so me and my fiance, we VA loan, scraped it together. We bought this junker. And less than 2 years later, we sold it for a $27,000 profit. And literally for the rest of my Navy career, I was like, I'm never going to rent again. Like, this is stupid. I'm buying. So I was in a great position to be a real estate investor because the Navy moved me every 3 years on average. So every time I move, I was buying a new primary residence. Well, what do I do with the old primary residence? Well, I'm either going to flip it, to live in, flip at that point, right? Buy it knowing I'm selling it in 3 years. I'd doll it up a little bit. I'd resell it for a profit. or I'd buy it in the right location, right schools, close to work, all that good stuff, and I'd turn it into a long-term rental. And so I bought and sold literally more than a dozen times in the last 2 decades, which for a lot of people are like, holy crap, I've only bought one house in 20 years. I've bought like 15 in 20 years. I currently own 5 properties in 3 different states because there's some I just held on to. But so all that to say, early in my military career, I knew that I was going to get into real estate eventually. But when you're bouncing around, overseas, and I'm over here in this state, that state, active duty Navy is not an easy job to be in real estate, right? Because it just demands so much of your time. As I moved to Central Virginia in 2017, we decided we were going to retire from the Navy, right? And it was kind of sudden. So I thought I was going to do 30 years. We get to Central Virginia, fell in love with it. We're like, we're done here. We're getting out. So I had that, well, what am I going to do when I grow up moment, right? I had to figure it out. So less than a year after showing up to a brand new market that I'd never been in, I got my real estate license. And I was active duty Navy and full-time real estate for about 3 years. And you want to talk about time management, right? That is a lesson in properly budgeting your calendar out to be able to wrangle both of those at the same time. But it worked out fine. So I got my license mid 2018. I closed about 10 deals before the year ended. I broke 6 figures my first full license year. I almost doubled that number the second year, and I did over 200,000 the next year. And the rest is history. And everyone was like, dude, you did 10 deals in your first 6 months. Like, what are you doing? What's the secret sauce? And as a guy who spent 21 years in the Navy just working, right? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm in real estate now. I'm doing my job. Well, what are you paying for leads? Are you doing this? I'm like, paying for leads? I don't have money, right? I'm on a military salary. I'm not paying for leads. And so I would have these conversations with people about what I was doing. I'm just calling people up and engaging them and building relationships. And that was like, you'd think I was an alien. They were like, what, you're calling FSBOs? You're calling who? Like how? And it boggled me because, right, how do you not know that? Like, I truly didn't understand how other agents didn't understand the value of just building good relationships with people. It kind of boggled me. So I wound up, that led me on kind of this journey of like, a lot of people took me out to coffee, right? A lot of agents wanted to pick my brain. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? How are you doing it? And I did that so much that I wound up making a couple of YouTube videos called Coffee with Walt to say, listen, here's what I tell people when they take me out to coffee. So you don't have to take me out to coffee. And that led me to doing some other stuff on some Facebook pages. That's actually how Robert found me. I was actually teaching people how to have quality conversations in real estate agent Facebook groups. And Robert came along as like, dude, why are you not teaching this for us? Like, this is good quality stuff. Teach it for us. Okay, sure. I'll jump on and teach it for you. So right about that time, I was going to move from Virginia to Florida. So I started looking at other brokerages because the brokerage I was with in Florida didn't exist here in Virginia. It didn't exist in Florida. And I had just kind of joined them right from the get-go and never bothered to look at models and commission splits and what might be better than the other. I just said, I like you. Well, let's work. So moving to Florida, I really took a lot of time and I dug into all the different brokerages, commission splits, fees, models, like just everything that I could find to see what made the most sense for my family, right? Because I was only moving one more time and whatever I settle with is I'm done. And so I landed on the EXP model. It made sense to me. And right about that time, I found Double Your Income Coaching. And so I was like, now I've got not only do I have the right model, but more importantly, I've got the right people, because I've always believed that being around the right people is a tremendous impact on your success, whether it's business, it's personal, it's military. The people you surround yourself with really do matter. And so those two things came together right about the same time, and the rest is history.
And here we are today. Like, I can't imagine moving that much. I mean, it's pretty insane. I mean, yeah, for everyone listening who doesn't know Robert Bean, he was actually on the podcast way back when now, because we released so much, but go check him out. This guy is dominant force on prospecting with Facebook groups and stuff. Like those the episodes he's done with us are insanely valuable. So go and check them out. So obviously everything's just kind of clashed in, or collided into like this perfect storm for you, your family. You've moved brokerage, you've joined the team. Obviously, you're part of our bigger organization as well, which is obviously Double Your Income and all that great stuff. So now you're here and everything's kind of rocking and rolling. What I want to do, because that's given us some context, is I want to dive into the first topic, right? Because I want to dive into having those quality conversations with prospects. Now, what I want to do is, are these quality conversations, is this very broad? Is it like, this is how you have quality conversations in general? Or is this going to be focused on the cold calling or the Facebook side? Like, how is that, I want you to
It depends. How much time do you have?
Yeah.
So here's what I do for Double Your Income Coaching. And before I even joined Double Your Income Coaching, I taught the course Quality Conversations, how to build relationships that build your business.
Right.
That focuses on 8 different conversations that real estate agents should have. You don't necessarily have to have all 8, but it's 8 different conversations that if you want to build your business very well, have these conversations. So I spent an hour breaking down 8 different conversations, where to find those people, how to have the conversation, how to properly follow up after the conversation. So we can talk as much or as little bit about that as you'd like.
Let's do it. Let's dive right in.
What are the 8 conversations?
All right. So that's always the question. So I break these conversations into kind of a scale of the easiest and most obvious to, hey, here's some stuff you probably didn't think about, but you should. And so the first 2, I believe absolutely any agent should be doing these regardless of any other prospecting, any other lead gen. And that's the tried and true, right? Sphere of influence and past clients. Those 2 conversations should absolutely happen when you're a new agent, especially, but even as an old agent. I'll give you a quick example. For the past clients, I was coaching an agent. I was on a call with an agent, and she says, I'm really upset because I've been in the business 5 or 6 years. I've done some great deals with people. And this year's a little slower, but I'm starting to see my past clients list with other agents. I don't know what I did wrong. Like they loved me. They gave me a 5-star review. I thought we were friends. Now they're listing their house with other agents. And so I said to them, well, let me ask you, just off the top of your head, in the last 5 years, how many times have you been in contact with that person? Crickets. Never. And so you got to explain to them, listen, it's nothing personal. They forgot your name, right? 5 years is a long time for a person to live life, and the brain can only manage so many good quality relationships at a time. You weren't one of them. And so when it came time for them to use another real estate agent because they had a service need, they didn't remember you and they had to go find somebody else. That's not their fault. That's on you. And so we have a great conversation about how to reach back out to your past clients if you didn't stay in touch. Let's say you closed some great deals a couple of years ago and you haven't been practicing that conversation, staying on top of mind with your past clients. You haven't had them in a good follow-up system. How do you reach back out to a client you haven't talked to in a year and rekindle that relationship so that the follow-up plan you put them into actually makes sense? And it's kind of similar for the sphere of influence. So many people, when you say, well, reach out to your sphere, you can do great business from there. They're like, well, I don't know that many people. I'm new to the area. I don't have a big sphere. And I will challenge almost anybody that's BS. They actually do have a great sphere. And this is what I tell people, because when you see sphere, they rattle off in their mind, right? The Rolodex of friends they know. Well, Jim and Joe and Sally and, oh yeah, there's that guy over there at the firehouse, right? Like, again, the brain can only hold so many good relationships at once. So when you say, tell me everyone in your sphere, a dozen names might come to mind, 30 if you're really, really acute. But if you go to your phone, I tell people, I said, pull up your phone and just thumb through your contact list. You probably got hundreds of names in your contact list. Yeah, you haven't talked to them in a while. Maybe you haven't talked to that person in 6 months. Maybe you haven't talked to that person in 6 years. But here's the thing. If you picked up the phone and you called them, and you said, hey, this is Walt. We haven't talked in like 4 years. How have you been? They will immediately recognize your voice. They'll know your name, and they will engage you in a conversation to catch back up with you. That is sphere of influence, right? It doesn't have to be somebody you're working with right now. It can be someone that you haven't touched base with in months. But if you have a good conversation with them to catch up, and it's not salesy, right? It's not like, hey, Jan, I'm just calling you because I'm in real estate now. I want your money, right? Don't be a schmuck about it. Do it right. You call them, you catch up, you see how they're doing. What's the family been up to lately? And you rekindle that relationship that was already there. And then you simply put them into a proper follow-up mechanism so that now they never forget you. And so those two conversations every agent should have, and they're incredibly easy conversations, right? Because you do already have some connection to that person. That is truly not cold calling. That is catching up with people and building relationships. So those are the softballs, right? Those are the easy two. Then you get into all those things that are more the cold calling traditional styles, like expired listings, geo leads for sell by owners, right? Those are the things that people really have trouble with because it's a fear of rejection, right? And Peter, you chime in here if I'm wrong. The reason you don't like to call is because you don't want to be yelled at. You don't want to be told no. You don't want to have someone perceive you as an asshole. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. And see, the thing is, I'm always afraid of getting an asshole on the other line because I have a tendency to take shit like way too personal. Yep. So I'm like, oh, man.
So on the bright side, you're not alone. There are tens of thousands of agents in every market that it's almost debilitating how afraid they are to pick up the phone and call somebody. Even though they know that if they do that well, there's good business to be done, that fear of rejection keeps them from doing it. And so I have to actually break this down when I do this conversation. I have to talk a little bit about the psychology behind the conversation. And I do a slide that is literally called fear versus reality. And so I'll break down like this is what you think will happen in your mind, like all these crazy scenarios. They'll try to sue me. They'll call the police. They'll threaten to call the FCC. They'll scream at me. They'll tell my mama a bad name, right? All these big things that people think of. That's not reality, but that's what we blow up in our mind, right? And then I said, well, here's what might happen, right? You catch somebody at the wrong time. They're having a bad day, and they may tell you, listen, dude, I don't want to bleep and talk to you. Boom, and they hang up the phone. That could happen, right? That is absolutely a possibility. Someone might throw a bad word at you and hang up on you. If that's the worst thing that happens in your day, bro, you're having a pretty good day still, right? Let's be real. If that's the worst that you get is piss off, I don't want to talk to you, you're doing okay. And what usually happens is someone will politely listen to what you're saying, and they'll say, hey, you know what? That's not for us. No thanks. Have a good day. And you move on to the next call. If you think about this, we all get cold called, right? It's funny how many people will cold call a real estate agent. I'm with the National Association of Realtors. I'm doing a survey. I'm trying to give you free healthcare. I'm trying to, right? All those people will cold call us, but we won't cold call a customer. When you get cold called, do you be like, don't ever freaking call me again? Or do you sit there and go,
get to the point.
I'm good. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Right?
Yeah, true.
Because most of the time, right, there are some jerks in the world. Don't be one of them. Naturally, though, our inclination is to not be disrespectful people, right? There's enough moral fiber left in the world that most people aren't instinctually a jerk on the phone with somebody that they don't know, right? They want to be polite to you. Even if they don't want your service, they're going to politely hold on for 30 seconds and they're like, hey, no, Peter, hey, listen, man, that's not for me. I appreciate it, but have a nice day. And that's literally how it'll go. Or you'll make a great connection that does business with you in the future. If that's the worst case scenario, is someone might hang up on you, but the best case scenario is that you do, and this is a statistical average, it might change a little bit market to market. Every person you put in your database is worth 10 to 15 deals over the life of your business. They're going to do something. They might have to do something again in the future when they upsize, they downsize, the kids go to college. Now they're empty nesters, right? They're going to do business with you. But if you manage that database properly and follow up, the referral business that you'll do is massive. And so every person that you connect with, put into your database, and then put on a quality follow-up plan becomes 10 to 15 deals over the life of your business. I'll take a couple, don't call me, I'm not interested, to build those relationships with people.
Right. So, Walt, is there like a certain way that you open up some of these calls that you can share with the audience where we can kind of put our bullshit that happens between our ears aside and make sure that we are
absolutely
the conversation?
So actually what I'll do is anybody who wants it, I have a very simple little PDF. I call it the Real Estate Agent Success Path. I put it out there to, I don't even know how many agents. When I teach this course, I actually tell people this is kind of the supplement to the course, right? It's the scripts, it's the mindset. Use the scripts to make the calls. Anybody who wants it can email me, and I'm happy to send it to them. If you want me, I can jump it in the chat here if you want. It's walter.key@gmail.com. Easiest freaking email you can ever remember, as long as I type it in right.
I'm going to take you up on that personally.
But I will absolutely send you them. And listen, cold calling and scripts are not new, right? There's so many great people out there. I'm not the only one. Ricky Carruth, a fellow EXP agent, is all about building good quality relationships. His scripts are pretty solid. There's other people out there that do it slightly differently. I do a little bit of hybrid stuff, but I really like Ricky Carruth. So if you've ever seen Ricky Carruth, you read my scripts, you're like, that's a relationship feel. I add a couple different things because I have other conversations that he doesn't really talk about. And in my PDF, I also talk a little bit about how to manage your social media well, the basics of how to build a YouTube channel well, just some stuff. So we can dive into the scripts a little bit more if anybody wants it, but there is a script for every one of those. Now, here's the thing, again, in the course, there's a script for every type of conversation because every type of conversation is a little bit different, right? The goal is not to sell somebody something. That's never the goal. The goal is, how do I add value to you, right? If I'm calling my past client, the value for me making that call is going to be different than if I'm calling a FSBO, right? Or if I'm calling an expired versus calling a landlord who just has our house on the market for rent. Those conversations have to be different because the value proposition is different. And if you're doing it right, you're focused on adding value to people's lives, not trying to sell them something on the phone, right? I've never tried to close a deal on the phone. That's just not what it's about. But generally speaking, a script is just a framework, right? You should not sound scripted when you make a call. We've all had those calls, right? We've all just like, oh my God. Actually, I was this is a funny story. I'm getting off on a tangent. I was about 15 minutes prior to teaching the course for Double Your Income Coaching, and I got cold called by someone trying to sell some real estate service. It was horrible. It was so scripted. It was robotic. And I literally was like, hey, listen, I'm not interested in your service, but can I take 10 minutes and just talk to you about your calling? And I literally was coaching this random cold caller on how to have a better conversation for the next, because it was that bad. We've all had those, right? You don't want to do that. Use the scripts as a framework to guide your conversation to the logical conclusion, right? So you don't have to use the same exact words I use, but you want to break the ice and ease the tension. You want to get to the point of how do I add value today? And you want to end with a data collection exercise, right? I want to end this call with permission to keep in touch, phone number, email, address potentially. I want the info to put into my database. I'm not trying to sell you something right now. We're not going to close a deal on the phone. I'm going to build a relationship, and then I'm going to nurture that relationship with proper follow-up until you're ready to do something. And so those scripts are literally just an outline to help you guide the conversation through to where you want it to be. And if you practice the scripts, right, either with another agent or even, honestly, even in front of the mirror, right, just read the script to yourself and have a conversation with yourself, looking at yourself in the mirror, you will actually start to get the framework of that conversation down. And that allows you to be more flexible when someone says something you weren't planning for, or they say it in a way that you weren't anticipating, it allows you to keep the conversation moving in a natural way because you've practiced it enough that you understand where you want it to go, and it's not about word for word dissertation on the paper. Does that make sense?
For everything I've done as well on the cold calling and sales side, and the problem with scripts vs frameworks. So scripts are an amazing starting point for people that are newer because it gives them something they can kind of follow, and it gives them that kind of confidence. And then I always found what people tend to do is they kind of change everything too quick. So you'll give them like a script / framework, and then they'll go, oh, I want to do this, that. For me, what a script is that framework, and it works. But the thing with the script is written in the language of the person who has written the script. AKA, one of the things that I always tell people to look out for is, and this will be country, culturally, state, it could be city, town, whatever. You tend to use different words to express how you feel, right? So, for example, Peter could tell you this. I tend to use the word awesome a lot. It's awesome. That's awesome. And I say perfect quite a lot, like perfect. I also, like when someone does something good, and this is maybe just where I'm from, I say champion. Like I'll just say champion, and it means like good job, right? But this is dialect. This is how I personally speak. Now, if I wrote that in a script and I gave it to Peter, he would be like, what the fuck is this? Because it doesn't make sense. So you tend to write scripts with like, okay, that's great or awesome. When I wouldn't say that. If I had to read a script that said, okay, that's great, it would sound so unnatural for me. But and this is where people, I think, feel like scripts don't work. It's like, actually, no, the framework needs to be followed. But then you can start tweaking verbiage for what feels natural. And the more natural it feels, the better you'll perform. The better you perform, the better the results will be. And this is kind of like the multi-step process that we've found tends to work. But you have to start somewhere. And that's fine, So take a script, a few words, change, and then roll with that. Yeah, and that's version 1,
That's exactly right. If you think about like high school English class, right? They say write a book report. The first thing they want you to do is build the outline. Now, if I take 15 different high school students' outlines, they'll be about 90% the same because they all read the same book. But the book report will be dramatically different because they're writing it with their own frame of mind, their own context, just like you said, their own vocabulary, their own verbiage. But the framework was the outline, and those are almost identical because there's a structure there. There's a psychological process in your calls that you want to go to. You're absolutely right. So, like, for example, a quick example, and then we can move on from this. I like to do the same exact thing on the end, and I like to do the same exact thing on the beginning. At the beginning of the call, I like to hear them say yes at least 3 times before we actually start having a conversation. And a lot of people are like, well, why are you asking the obvious questions? I'm asking the obvious questions is because they're saying yes to me, and psychologically, even though the question means nothing, psychologically, we are starting this conversation on a positive note. Right. So I'll ask super, super simple questions. Hey, is this the owner of 123 Main Street? Yes, it is. Awesome. Great. And I see that you're trying to sell this on your own. Is that correct? Yes, I am. Wonderful. I totally get that. Makes perfect sense to me in this market. I'm just curious, would you be open to working with a buyer's agent if someone brought you the right price? Of course they would, right? The right price is so subjective. Everyone will sell for the right price. So now in 30 seconds, I've got 3 yeses. All I've done is kind of ease the tension from who the hell is this person calling me, so that when I start having a real conversation, we're in a positive mindset already. The questions mean absolutely nothing. I know you're the owner of 123 Main Street. I'm freaking looking at your FSBO listing online. I know you're trying to sell it for yourself. I'm on forsalebyowner.com. But asking those questions and then getting those yeses sets a foundation for a better conversation to take place, right? Likewise, at the end of the conversation, regardless of the conversation, I will always take it back around to, hey, listen, this was great. I really appreciate your time. Would it be okay if we stayed in touch more? Right? That works for your sphere. Hey, I know we haven't talked in 6 years. This was wonderful catching up. Would it be okay if we stayed in touch more? I call a FISBO and they're like, I'm not really ready to do any business with you, but if you got a buyer, I'd love to have. Awesome. That sounds great. Well, I appreciate your time. Would it be okay if I stay in touch with you to see how it goes? Right. Yes, stay in touch with me. Okay, cool. Well, listen, I got your phone number. Was this the best number for you? Was this your cell number? Yeah, this is my cell. Awesome. What's the best email address for you? I'd like to just shoot you my contact information in case you have any questions. You'll already have it. Right. Almost all my conversations end with, can we stay in touch? And I'll collect that data. From then on, it's simply a proper follow-up system. They're never going to forget my name. I never have to try to sell them something again. I never have to pitch them something. They're going to get, from me specifically, they'll get a weekly newsletter. Somebody else might send them a text campaign. So every couple of weeks they get a text message. But I'm going to be top of mind with them for the rest of their life. Right? When the word real estate is spoken to this person, Walt Key is the name that's going to immediately drift into their head. So that's their business. That's referral business. That's Aunt Sally needs to do something. My name is going to come up. Right? That's the whole point. It's not trying to close deals right then. It's trying to build relationships that build your business. And the more business you build into your database, the more future business you're going to close.
Right. Yeah, it's so funny listening to you breaking it down because so many of these frameworks I'm super familiar with, where it's like the start and the end, because you've got opening cadence and closing cadences, and they're the two things that you don't tend to change either. With instant scripts, you tend to keep the first and the last exactly as written, and the middle bit is mobile, like you can kind of manipulate it.
It's got to flex.
Yeah. So I love it. This is true salesmanship. Oh, and by the way, if you're interested in gaining access to our course and coaching programs, then head over to go.eliteagentsecrets.com.